I was raised by a single dad. And, desperate to connect, we were trying to get, some sort of level playing ground between him and I. And he decided that one weekend he was going to take me to a car show, and I absolutely fell in love. And so it became a regular weekly, monthly basis. And I grew up in an area where there's a very big love for the classic cars, and my dad also has that love. So we would go to these shows, and he's, huge on the Camaros and the Chevelles and the Firebirds, and he's showing me everything, giving me factoids. And I remember there was one show we were at, and, I'm up on his shoulders, we're looking around, normal thing. And all of a sudden, you just hear the crowd erupt, like, move, get out of the way, back up, coming through, blah, blah, blah. So my dad whips me around, we move back. And sure enough, there's this car coming through, and its doors are, the complete wrong way of all these other cars. And I'm waiting to see what it is, and this thing parks in like the mega roped off stanchion spot. And we finally get up to see what it is, and it's this beautiful triple white Lamborghini Countach. And I remember my eyes went so wide, and it was the most beautiful car I'd ever seen, and it looked nothing like these other cars. And everyone was all over this car. And I was asking my dad, what makes this car so special? And he was like, it's a Lamborghini. And I was like, all right, well, I want one. And he was like, well, if you work hard enough, you can get one. I think that kind of started my love for cars at the age of 6 years old. And now I'm 27. And to this day, I still love the Lamborghini Countach more than anything in the world. And I think that had a lot to do with it that day. When I finally got to the age where I could explore the passion of cars a little bit more, which is obviously 16. I really wanted to do something in the space, but I didn't know what I could do. So I was thankful enough that a lot of my friends were, for lack of a better word, hooners and tuners. And, they had the souped up Infinities and Camaros and stuff like that. So I got to get into the racing scene with them a little bit. And maybe not the safest thing in the world, going to like these Home Depot, car meets on Thursday nights, whatever, and then racing down US 1 or whatever the major highway is. But it got me talking to the right people. And we ended up going to track events to keep ourselves a little bit more safer when it came to the whole racing thing. And being out there, I got to meet people that own shops. I got to meet people that own dealerships. And it just became a sense of networking with these people where it's like, hey, listen, if you need promotional work, if you need help at the shop, like I'm really good at customer service, please, like let me help you. And I worked for a number of shops. It was great. I got to learn about, what's in the guts of these cars. And then I got approached by a dealership, and they're like, hey, listen, we need a receptionist. And this dealership specifically did exotic cars. When I started working for this dealership, obviously I had a love for exotic cars, but I didn't really know them the way that I perhaps should. So I wanted to know more. I was hungry for it. And I was super thankful that the salesman there at the dealership wanted to help me learn. So they would play this game with me. The dealership had one way in and one way out. So if any car needed to move for service or getting cleaned, they would open the door and move all these cars out to get to the one that they needed. And this would happen, once a day, twice a day, every single day. And it was fun because whenever this happened, the salesmen would come over to my desk, and obviously I face the front door. I can't see what's going on behind me. And they would essentially be like, okay, whatever starts up, tell me what car that is. And at first, 9 out of 10 times, I got it wrong. I didn't even know what half of these cars were. And even though I got it wrong, they would pick me up from my desk, bring me outside to where the cars were sitting, and they're like, okay, no, this is this car. This is a Lamborghini Huracan. This is a McLaren MP412C. This is, an Audi R8. And this one's modified. It has a Novitec exhaust. It has something. And I learned, and I picked up these little factoids here and there. They would try to tell me the engine, the horsepower, something that I could, go off the rip with these people. The best part, though, was after about 3-4 months, I could name every single car just from the startup. Didn't even have to move. The moment I heard it start up, I knew exactly what it was. And I thought that was so cool because when you're a car person, each car sounds completely different. One day, we were in Italy, actually, for another coworker's wedding. And we're all out there at a cafe, having our cappuccinos. And I'm watching all these cars go by. And I was like, how cool would it be if we did a book about cars, but for kids? And everyone kind of just like looked at me and they're like, say more things. And I was like, well, maybe we could do, look at all these cars. There's different cars in Europe than there is in like the United States. And I kind of lost them on that. And they were like, no. And I was like, okay. What if we do a book where we make cars speak? And they're like, well, what would the car say? And I was like, a car speaks on its own. When you start it up and with an exhaust note, a car says something different depending on the engine, what it is, who made it. And all of them looked at me and they're like, we got to make this book. I had the vision of what it was going to be whilst we were sitting there. And then on the plane ride home, I began mapping it out, what I wanted it to look like, how many cars did I want to be in the book. And everything was kind of just magic numbers. I was like, I want 21 cars. I want everything. I want Hondas to Ferraris, Lamborghinis. I want to feature everything because there's plenty of people that may not get to see a Ferrari on a daily basis. I'm very lucky to get to do that. So that's why that first row is notable cars, Honda, Jeep, Mini Cooper. And I wanted to take it a step further because me as a child, I love Dr. Seuss. So I went and backed myself in a corner and I was like, you know what? On this plane ride, I'm going to make all these cars pages. Whatever I write about them, it's going to rhyme. And that ended up probably being the most difficult thing to do because obviously you want to make it sound good. You want to make it so a kid can read it, a parent can read it. But overall, that was probably the most challenging part. And then the most fun part was collecting all of the sounds because it was going to a bunch of different people's houses and going, all the way down to Miami to get a Pagani because there's one guy with the Pagani and we had to knock on his door nicely and be like, hi, can I use this for a kid's book, please? And, obviously their faces light up and they enjoy it. And then the guy who would come with me was my videographer at the time. He lost an eyebrow getting the sound for the Aventador because it had an exhaust on it. Guy didn't tell us about it. So obviously he's right down there by the pipe. Guy starts it up, whomps on it, flame shoots out, and his eyebrow was gone. So the most difficult one was actually the Rolls Royce. So I hope you all have a copy of the book. If not, you got to get one. But the Rolls Royce doesn't really have a sound. And at that point, I had already written the book. I had already chosen the Rolls Royce. I was like, it needs to be featured in here. And sure enough, we go to get a sound of the Rolls Royce and you can't hear it. It's not even like you can't hear a Tesla. Like it makes a noise, but it's just impossible to pick up. So instead, what we decided to do was we were going to keep the Rolls. But when you think of Rolls Royces, you think of money. So when you press the Rolls Royce button, it has a cha-ching. And that was the only one we struggled with, but we ended up turning it into a little joke. And it's a cute little Easter egg because even now I'll have like people, message the help desk for what car stand. They're like, hey, I think one of my buttons is broken. And I was like, it's not broken. It's a little joke. And everyone thinks it's hysterical after I tell them why. But I always I'll take those emails. I'm like, send those to me and let Rachel respond because I can give them the inside scoop on why it is what it is. I really want to make another book and I essentially want to go full out because kids have this inclination towards things that go. And cars is just a very small portion of that, like transportation, ways to get from here to there, trucks, planes, trains, boats. So I want to dive further into that. And I want to use that as an opportunity to build on what cars say. Because even though this is a huge passion project for me because it centers around cars, I think there's a great opportunity to really get personal with these other types of modes of transportation, which will get kids excited and therefore also teach them. And then also, connect it back to the parents in a way too. And that's what Cars Say does so well. So I want the next books to be able to do that too. And until I have it exactly perfect, the same way with What Cars Say, it won't happen. But it will happen soon.
No one should do a private party car deal without Caramel. During a car transaction, you've got a car, a title, and some money that's going to be changing hands, and I always tell everybody that neither side gets to have all three. But Caramel solves all of that because they verify the identities of both parties, they safely and securely connect to each side's bank account to manage the transfer of money, and they process your title and do all the DMV paperwork no matter what state the buyer or the seller are in. And for a limited time, Caramel is free to both buyers and sellers. They do allow you to add transportation and warranty products and things like that as you close your deal. So check them out now at drivecaramel.com or at the link in the description below.